Hyundai wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the broken cooling unit on his workbench. 3 different alien engineers had declared it beyond repair. They had used their fancy scanners and complicated tools, then shaken their heads and walked away. Day had fixed it in 20 minutes with a screwdriver and some wire. This was his life aboard Crossroads Haven, the massive trading station that floated in neutral space between 3 galactic powers. He lived in the lower maintenance decks, where the air always smelled like oil and ozone. His workshop was small and cluttered with parts that other species threw away. To them, these were broken pieces of junk. Today, they were puzzles waiting to be solved. The other mechanics on the station called him the miracle worker. Day never understood why everyone else found repairs so difficult. When he looked at a broken machine, he just knew what was wrong. His hands moved without thinking, finding problems that sensors could not detect. It was like the machines spoke to him in a language only he could hear. Day was 32 years old and had worked on the station for 8 years. He preferred the quiet of his workshop to the busy promenades where thousands of aliens from hundreds of species traded goods and gossip. Humans had joined the Galactic Coalition 300 years ago, but they were still considered the new kids. Most aliens thought humans were primitive and lucky. They had computers and space travel. But their technology was centuries behind everyone else. Yet somehow, human mechanics had a reputation. They could fix things that stumped species who had been building starships for millennia. Nobody knew why. Most aliens assumed it was dumb luck. Day did not care what they thought. He just liked fixing things. The door to his workshop slid open with a hiss. A tall alien stepped inside, ducking to avoid hitting his head on the doorframe. His name was Velk, an Athrul merchant that Day had helped before. The Athrul looked like walking lizards with 4 arms and purple scales. Velk was dragging something behind him, on a hover cart. "Human mechanic," Velk said in the clicking trade language that everyone on the station used. "I have something for you." Day looked at the object on the cart. It was a black sphere about 3 feet wide. The surface was covered in strange symbols that seemed to shimmer in the light. Despite being black, it somehow looked like it was reflecting stars that were not there. "What is it?" Day asked. Velk made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Nobody knows. I bought it from a salvage dealer who found it floating in deep space. Every expert I have shown it to says the same thing. It is broken, dead, worthless, maybe just a decoration from some extinct species. I want to scrap it for parts, but I thought you might want it first." Day stepped closer to the sphere. Something strange happened in his chest. It felt like recognition, like seeing an old friend after many years. He reached out and touched the surface. It was smooth and cold, but somehow it felt alive under his fingers. "How much do you want for it?" Day heard himself ask. Velk waved all 4 hands. "Take it. Consider it payment for fixing my ship's engine last month. Every advanced species in the galaxy has looked at this thing for centuries. If they cannot figure it out, no one can. Maybe you can use the materials for something." Day nodded slowly. He could not take his eyes off the sphere. "Thank you." Day. After Velk left, Day stood in his workshop staring at the black sphere for a long time. The symbols on its surface seemed to move when he was not looking directly at them. He knew that was impossible. It had to be a trick of the light. He cleared his workbench and carefully lifted the sphere onto it. The object was heavier than it looked. As he moved it, he felt something shift inside. Not broken pieces, rattling around. Something deliberate. Something mechanical. Day grabbed a cleaning cloth and started wiping away the grime. The sphere had been floating in space for who knows how long. Layers of cosmic dust and space debris covered it like a second skin. As he cleaned, the symbols became clearer. They were not random decorations. They were instructions. His heart started beating faster. He had seen mechanical locks before, ancient puzzle boxes that opened only if you knew the secret. But those were human creations. This was alien technology from a species that might have died out thousands of years ago. For the next 3 weeks, Day barely left his workshop. His friend Yuna Rin came to check on him several times. Yuna was another human, an engineer who worked on the station's power systems. She was smart and practical, and worried that Day was obsessing over nothing. "It is just space junk," she told him on her 3rd visit. She found him surrounded by notes and diagrams, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "Whatever it was, it is dead now. You are wasting your time." Day did not argue. He just kept working. His fingers traced the symbols over and over, feeling for patterns. He used primitive human tools because his instincts told him that advanced technology was not the answer. Whoever made this sphere had designed it for hands, not energy beams or quantum scanners. On the 21st day, something clicked. Day had rotated 17 specific symbols in a precise sequence. They moved under his fingers like tumblers in a lock, each one settling into place with a satisfying snick. When the last symbol locked into position, the sphere hummed. The sound was low and deep, more felt than heard. It vibrated through the workbench and into Day's bones. The black surface suddenly blazed with blue light. Day jumped back, shielding his eyes. Holographic displays erupted from the sphere, filling his workshop with floating images of star maps and alien text. Then the sphere spoke. The voice was clear and strong, and impossibly. "Welcome home, my king." Day stood frozen in shock. Alarms started blaring throughout the station. His workshop door slammed open, and Tae-jun, the station's human security chief, rushed in with his weapon drawn. "What did you do?" Tae-jun shouted over the noise. Day could not answer. He stared at the glowing sphere as holographic images swirled around it. The voice spoke again, still in Korean, still calling him king. "Sentinel Omega online. I have been searching for 50,000 years. Finally, an inheritor has found me." Tae-jun's weapon clattered to the floor. Around them, the station's alarms screamed into the void. In his small workshop in the lower decks, Han Day had just changed the galaxy forever. He had only wanted to fix a broken relic. Instead, he had awakened something ancient, something that had been waiting since before any living species had learned to reach the stars, something that thought he was a king. The station's command center was in chaos. Sensors had detected an energy signature unlike anything in their databases. Every security system had triggered at once. Species from a dozen different worlds were demanding explanations. And at the center of it all was a human mechanic who had somehow activated an artifact that had been declared dead for centuries. Day sat in an interrogation room with the black sphere on the table between him and a panel of officials. Tae-jun stood guard by the door. His face, unreadable. The sphere had gone quiet after its initial announcement, but it still glowed with that eerie blue light. The station commander, a four-eyed Vrelian named Quoth, leaned forward. "Explain what you did, human." "I cleaned it," Day said simply. "Then I followed the instructions on the surface. The symbols are a lock mechanism. I just turned them in the right order." Day said. Koth's eye stalks twisted in frustration. "Impossible. The Vrelian Science Academy examined this object 80 years ago. Our best minds found nothing." "Maybe they were looking too hard," Day replied. He reached toward the sphere. "May I?" Before anyone could stop him, Day touched the surface. The sphere immediately brightened. The voice returned, still speaking Korean. "Genetic match confirmed. Neural pattern recognized. You carry the markers of the first people. I am Sentinel Omega, constructed by the progenitor empire to guard the legacy of those who came before." One of the officials, a theocratic hive representative, started chanting prayers. Another, a corporate syndicate delegate, was already on her communication device. Day ignored them all and focused on the sphere. "What are you?" he asked in Korean. "Why do you call me king?" "I will only speak with you Omega replied. Request privacy. Quoth started to protest, but Taejun interrupted. Let him talk to it. Nothing else has worked. After much argument, they cleared the room. Only Dae, Taejun, and Yuna remained. Yuna had arrived when she heard the news and refused to leave. She stood with her arms crossed, looking skeptical. Dae took a deep breath. Omega, explain everything. Slowly, the sphere projected a hologram into the air. It showed a galaxy millions of years in the past. The progenitors were the first civilization to achieve sentience in this galaxy. They were human in form, human in mind. They explored, they built, they created wonders, but they were alone. The hologram shifted, showing laboratories and vast genetic engineering facilities. So they seeded life. They took their own genetic code and modified it, creating templates for different species, each one designed to thrive in different environments, each one given the potential for intelligence and growth. Yuna gasped. That is impossible. Evolution does not work that way. Natural evolution does not, Omega agreed. But the progenitors did not leave things to chance. Over millions of years, the species they created grew and changed. Some died out, others thrived. Eventually, they forgot their origins and believed they had evolved naturally. The hologram showed dozens of species that Dae recognized from the station. The Athrul, the Vrelian, the hive colonies. Even species he had never seen before, all of them connected by thin genetic threads back to a source that looked unmistakably human. But what happened to the progenitors? Dae asked. Why did they disappear? 50,000 years ago, they detected a threat from beyond this dimension, an entity that consumes entire realities. They called it the Devourer. Rather than wait for it to arrive, the progenitors transcended their physical forms and went to fight it in its own realm. The hologram showed humans turning into beings of pure energy and light, passing through a tier in space itself. They left behind 12 sentinels to watch over their children and wait for the day when the species they created might be ready to join them in the war. Taejun finally spoke. Why humans? Why is Dae special? Earth was the reserve, Omega explained. A world kept isolated and protected. While other species evolved and changed over millions of years, humans on Earth developed naturally but slowly. They retained the original progenitor genetic code more purely than any other species. They are the inheritors. The backup plan, if the other species failed. That is why we can fix anything, Yuna whispered. It is not luck. It is genetic memory. We remember how our ancestors built things. Correct, Omega said. The knowledge sleeps in your DNA. When you interact with technology, especially progenitor technology, those memories begin to wake. The human called Dae has a particularly strong connection. His genetic markers are nearly perfect. Dae felt sick. I do not want to be a king. I just fix machines. Nevertheless, you are what you are, Omega replied. And now that I am awake, others will come. The sphere's activation sent a signal across the galaxy. Every major power will want to control you or kill you. As if summoning them by speaking, the door burst open. 3 armed guards rushed in, not station security but private soldiers wearing corporate syndicate armor. Behind them came a well-dressed alien woman with too many teeth. Secure the artifact and the human, she ordered. The syndicate is claiming salvage rights. Taejun drew his weapon, but he was outnumbered. More soldiers poured in. Tae backed against the wall, his hand still on Omega's surface. Do something, he shouted at the sphere. Defensive protocols activated. Omega responded calmly. The air around the sphere shimmered. Weapons fired, but the shots stopped in midair, frozen by some kind of force field. Then the sphere pulsed. The soldiers flew backward as if hit by an invisible wave, slamming into walls and crumpling to the floor. They were unconscious, but alive. The syndicate woman stumbled backward, fear in her multiple eyes. More alarms blared. Day heard running footsteps and shouting from multiple directions. "We need to leave," Yuna said urgently. "Now." Taejun nodded. "I know someone who can get you off the station. Mina Hay, a transport pilot. She owes me a favor." "Wait," Day protested. "I cannot just run. You have no choice." Taejun grabbed his arm. "Look around you. You just became the most valuable thing in the galaxy. Everyone will want you. Some to use you. Some to study you. Some to worship you. And some to kill you before you become too powerful." Omega spoke again. "He is correct. We must reach the first vault. Only there will you find safety and answers. I will guide you." "Where is this vault?" Day asked. "In the Dead Zone, a region of space that was destroyed during the ancient war. It is dangerous, but it is also the one place where my siblings sleep. We must wake them." Through the doorway, Day could see chaos spreading through the station. Fights had broken out between different factions. Everyone wanted the sphere. Everyone wanted him. Yuna grabbed Omega from the table. The sphere was surprisingly light for her, as if it wanted to be carried. "Come on," she said. "We can figure this out later. Right now, we survive." They ran through maintenance tunnels that Day knew by heart. Taejun led them toward the private docking bays where independent pilots kept their ships. Behind them, Day could hear weapons fire and shouting in a dozen languages. His simple life was over. 3 weeks ago, he had been a mechanic who just wanted to fix broken things. Now he was running for his life, carrying a 50,000-year-old AI that called him king and claimed he was the heir to a civilization that had created every species in the galaxy. Somewhere in the chaos, Day started laughing. It was either that or scream. Yuna gave him a worried look, but he shook his head. "I am fine," he said. "I was just thinking that I should have let Velk scrap the sphere for parts." "Too late now," Yuna replied grimly as they ran toward an uncertain future. Mina Hai's ship was called the Wind Runner, and it looked like it had been through a war. The hull was patched in a dozen places, the paint was faded, and one of the engine nacelles sparked occasionally. But when Mina fired up the engines and blasted away from Crossroads Haven, the ship moved like a dancer. "Hold on," Mina shouted over the roar of acceleration. "This is going to be rough." 3 different ships immediately gave chase: a syndicate cruiser, a theocratic hive vessel, and a military collective destroyer. They all wanted the same thing. They all wanted Day and Omega. Mina threw the Windrunner into a spiral dive toward a nearby asteroid field. Weapons fire lit up the space around them. Day held onto his seat and tried not to vomit. Yuna had secured Omega in a cargo net, and the sphere glowed calmly as if being shot at was normal. "Who are you?" Day managed to ask between violent turns. "Independent freight hauler," Mina replied, her hands flying over the controls. "I owed Tay a favor. Looks like we are even now." She dove under a massive asteroid and killed the engines. The Windrunner went silent and dark, drifting with the rocks. The 3 pursuing ships flew past, their sensors fooled by the asteroid's minerals. Mina waited 5 minutes before restarting the engines, this time heading in a different direction. "Where are we going?" Yuna asked. "Away," Mina said simply. "After that, you tell me." They fled to a small moon on the edge of Coalition space, an old mining colony that had been abandoned decades ago. The Windrunner landed inside a collapsed hangar bay, hidden from casual sensors. For the first time in hours, they could breathe. Taejun had stayed behind on the station. Someone needed to manage the situation and buy them time. Before they left, he had grabbed Bo Wu, a human doctor who worked in the station's medical bay. Bo was quiet and thoughtful, and he immediately started examining everyone for injuries. "We need to talk about what happens next," Yuna said, once they were settled in the ship's common room. She had Omega placed on the table. "The entire galaxy knows about this now. Earth's ambassador is probably having the worst day of her life. Day thought about Ambassador Sora Kwan. She was smart and tough, but how do you explain to the galaxy that humans are apparently the children of the civilization that created everyone? How do you tell millions of species that they are all related, and that the primitive humans they look down on are actually their older siblings? Omega, Day said to the sphere. Show us everything. No more secrets. For the next 3 days, Omega taught them. The sphere projected holograms and shared knowledge that had been stored for 50 millennia. Day learned about the progenitor empire at its height, cities that floated between dimensions, ships that could cross the galaxy in days, technology that looked like magic. But he also learned about the cost. The progenitors had been fighting the Devourer for 50,000 years in a war beyond normal space. They were winning, but barely. They needed help. That was why they had created other species. They hoped their children would grow strong enough to join the fight. Why not just tell them? Yuna asked. Why leave and let everyone forget? Because knowledge given is not knowledge earned, Omega replied. If they had told their created species the truth, those species would have remained dependent, always looking to the progenitors for guidance. They needed to grow on their own, to develop their own strengths and cultures. Only then would they be true allies, not servants. Bo Wu had been quiet through most of the lessons, but now he spoke up. I have been monitoring all of you. Your brain patterns are changing. Being near Omega is doing something to your DNA. You are all developing abilities. Day had noticed it too. When he touched the ship's systems, he could feel them in ways he never had before. Not just mechanical understanding, but actual connection. He could sense problems before they happened. His hands knew what to do without his brain telling them. Yuna had started seeing in her mind how engines and power systems worked in perfect detail. She could visualize solutions to problems that should take hours of calculation. Mina's reflexes had become incredible. She could fly through asteroid fields that should be impossible to navigate. Even Bo noticed changes. He could look at someone and know their health, sensing things without instruments. We are becoming what our ancestors were, Day said quietly. Omega is waking up the dormant genes. Yes, Omega confirmed. You are inheritors in truth now, not just genetics, but this will make you targets. Other species will fear what you are becoming. The sphere was right. News from the galaxy was bad and getting worse. The coalition was fracturing. Some species demanded that humans be given leadership roles, arguing that as progenitor descendants, they had the right. Others insisted humans were still too primitive and dangerous. Extremist groups had formed on both sides. On Earth, protests filled the streets. Some humans celebrated, believing they were finally getting the respect they deserved. Others were terrified of the responsibility. Earth's government was paralyzed, unable to decide how to respond. And then there were the attacks. Human colonies on the frontier reported raids by unknown ships. Some humans had been kidnapped, presumably for study. Others had been killed by fanatics who believed humans should be destroyed before they could reclaim their throne. Sora Kwan managed to send them a secret message. Her face looked tired in the recording. Day, wherever you are, you need to know that Earth is not ready for this. Neither is the galaxy. People are afraid. They are angry. They are confused. Some want to worship you. Some want to kill you. And I am stuck trying to prevent a war. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Omega claims there is a vault. A place with more answers. If you can reach it, maybe you can find something that will help. Something that will prove we are not here to conquer or rule. Because right now, half the galaxy thinks you are either a savior or a threat to everything they know. The recording ended. Day sat in silence, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on him. He was 32 years old. A mechanic. He had never wanted power or attention. He just liked fixing things. We go to the vault, he said finally. Omega. Show us the way. In Reader. 1. One waiter. 7. Omega. The sphere projected a star map. Far across the galaxy was a region marked in red. The Dead Zone. Hundreds of solar systems destroyed in an ancient war. Radiation storms, spatial anomalies, and gravitational chaos made it nearly impossible to navigate. Ships that went in rarely came back. The first vault is hidden in the heart of the Dead Zone, Omega explained. Protected by defenses that have lasted 50,000 years. Only someone with progenitor DNA can open it. Inside are answers and technology that will help you understand your true heritage. Mina studied the map and whistled. That is at least 3 months of travel. And we will need supplies, fuel, and better shields. The Windrunner is tough, but she is not built for that kind of journey. Then we prepare, Yuna said firmly. She looked at Day. You did not ask for this, but it is happening anyway. We can hide and hope someone else solves the problem, or we can face it. Day thought about all the messages they had received. Humans across the galaxy asking what they should do. Other species demanding answers. Everyone looking to him. A simple mechanic who just wanted to fix broken things. Maybe that was still his job, he realized. The galaxy was broken right now. Maybe he could fix that too. We go to the vault, he repeated. We find the answers, and then we figure out how to stop a war. In the cold dark of space, the Windrunner prepared for a journey into the most dangerous region of the galaxy. Inside, a mechanic tried to become a king, not because he wanted to, but because no one else could. The journey to the Dead Zone took 2 months, and the galaxy burned behind them. Day watched the news broadcasts whenever they stopped for supplies. Earth's ambassador, Sora Kwan, was working day and night, trying to hold the coalition together. Some species wanted immediate alliance with humanity. Others demanded that all humans be quarantined until the situation could be studied. Religious groups worshipped at temples to the progenitors, with humans as their prophets. Military groups prepared for war against the human threat. 3 human colonies had been attacked. Not by any official military, but by extremist groups who believed humans needed to be eliminated before they could awaken fully. 70 people had died. Earth's government was demanding justice, but the coalition was too fractured to respond. Meanwhile, Day and his small crew traveled through the quiet parts of space, avoiding major trade routes. Mina knew smuggler paths and forgotten stations where they could refuel without attracting attention. But even in the shadows, they were hunted. The first assassination attempt came at a fuel depot on the rim of Hive territory. Day had gone to the station market to buy food, while Mina refueled the ship. He was looking at fresh vegetables when he felt something wrong. A tingling at the base of his skull, like a warning. Day turned just as a figure in black armor raised a weapon. His body moved before his mind understood what was happening. He dove behind a market stall as energy bolts seared the air where he had been standing. Other shoppers screamed and ran. The assassin was fast, but Day was faster. Those weeks near Omega had changed him more than he realized. He could sense the attacker's movements, predict where the shots would come from. He grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and threw it with perfect accuracy. It struck the assassin's weapon, knocking it away. Mina appeared from nowhere, moving with impossible speed. She had been across the station when the attack started, but somehow she had known. She tackled the assassin, and in seconds had the armored figure pinned to the ground. Station security arrived moments later. Who sent you? Mina demanded, ripping off the assassin's helmet. The alien underneath said nothing, just bit down on something in its mouth. Poison. It was dead before Bo could reach them. They found 3 more assassins waiting near the Windrunner. Omega had detected them and warned Yuna, who had used the ship's defensive systems to stun them. These ones did not have poison teeth. Station security interrogated them and found they were hired by a shell company with ties to the corporate syndicate. They want you alive, Taejun told them over a secure channel that night. He had managed to stay in contact despite the chaos. The extremists want you dead, but the big powers want to capture you. They think if they control you, they can control access to progenitor technology. How is Earth? Day asked. Tay's face on the screen looked grim. Scared, angry, confused. Your planet went from being nobody special to the most important world in the galaxy overnight. People do not know how to handle it. The military is on high alert. Sora is trying to keep everyone calm. But it is not working. We need answers, Day. We need something to give people hope that this will not end in war. After that call, they jumped into deep space and traveled for a week without stopping. They needed time to think, to plan, and to let Omega continue their education. Day spent hours each day with the sphere, learning about progenitor history and technology. The more he learned, the more he understood how much had been lost. The progenitors had not just built ships and cities, they had created art, philosophy, and science that made current civilization look like children playing with toys. But they had also made mistakes. They had created species without thinking about how those species would interact with each other. Some of the genetic templates were incompatible, leading to species that could never understand each other. The progenitors had tried to fix these problems, but then the devourer had come, and they had run out of time. They were not perfect, Omega admitted during one lesson. They were brilliant, but flawed. They believed they could engineer peace by designing species to be complementary. Instead, they created the conditions for endless conflict. So what do we do? Day asked. How do we fix this? That is for you to decide, inheritor. You carry their genes, but not their mistakes. You have the chance to do what they could not. Unite the species they created, not through force or genetic programming, but through choice. The words haunted Day. He was a mechanic, not a diplomat or a king. But he was starting to understand that maybe his skills were what was needed. The galaxy was broken. Someone needed to fix it. As they got closer to the dead zone, their abilities continued to grow. Yuna could now interface directly with the ship's systems, her mind linking with the computer in ways that should be impossible. She could reroute power, adjust shields, and optimize engines just by thinking about it. Mina's piloting had become supernatural. She flew through space debris at speeds that should guarantee collision. But somehow, she always knew where every rock would be. Her reaction time was measured in milliseconds. Bo could now diagnose medical conditions by touch, and had started to understand alien biology in ways that baffled him. And Day found he could do more than just fix machines. He could feel them. Every ship they passed, every station they approached, he could sense its systems like they were part of his own body. It was overwhelming and terrifying and amazing all at once. Is this what the progenitors were like? He asked Omega one night. No, the sphere replied. They were much more. What you are experiencing is just the beginning. If you reach your full potential, you will be able to shape reality itself. That is why they could fight the devourer. They transcended the physical and became something more. I do not want to transcend, Day said quietly. I want to stay human. You will always be human, Omega assured him. But human is not a limitation. It is a potential waiting to be unlocked. They finally reached the edge of the dead zone. The space before them looked wrong. Stars were dimmed or missing entirely. Radiation clouds glowed with sickly colors. The gravity was unstable, creating whirlpools in space that could tear ships apart. This is it, Mina said, her hands on the controls. Last chance to turn back. Day looked at the others. Yuna gave him a firm nod. Bo smiled nervously. Mina waited for his decision. We go in, Day said. The Windrunner crossed into the dead zone. Immediately, every alarm on the ship started screaming. Radiation levels spiked. The shields strained under gravitational forces. Mina fought the controls as space itself seemed to push them away. Something is wrong, Yuna shouted over the noise. I am detecting multiple ships. Big ones. The sensors cleared for a moment, and Day's blood went cold. 3 fleets had followed them. A syndicate battle group, a hive armada, and military collective warships. Hundreds of ships, all converging on their position. They were waiting for us, Mina realized. They knew we would come here. Energy beams lit up the dead zone as the three fleets opened fire, not at each other, but at the Windrunner. Everyone wanted the sphere. Everyone wanted Day. And none of them cared if he survived, as long as their enemies did not get him. Evasive maneuvers, Day ordered, his voice surprisingly calm. Omega, can you help? Yes, the sphere replied. But if I use my weapons, it will reveal my full capabilities. The galaxy will know exactly how powerful progenitor technology is. Do it, Day said. We did not come this far to die now. Omega glowed bright, and the small cargo ship suddenly became something else. Ancient weapons that had slept for 50,000 years came online, and the hunters became the hunted. The Windrunner danced through weapons fire like it had been born to battle. Omega had taken control of the defensive systems, creating shields that bent energy beams around the ship. When missiles came too close, invisible force fields swatted them aside like insects, but they were still outnumbered. 3 fleets circled them, and more ships were arriving every minute. The galaxy had followed them into the dead zone, and now a massive space battle raged around a shattered moon that orbited a dying star. There, Omega said, projecting coordinates directly into Mina's mind. She gasped at the sensation, but understood immediately. The vault was inside the moon, buried deep beneath kilometers of rock. We need to get to the surface, Day said. Can you hold them off? For a time, Omega replied. But hurry. Mina pushed the engines to maximum and dove toward the moon. Ships gave chase, but Omega unleashed weapons that had not been seen in 50,000 years. Beams of pure white light cut through space, disabling ships without destroying them. The progenitors had been warriors but not killers. Their weapons stunned and stopped, giving enemies a chance to surrender. The 3 fleets, seeing this demonstration of power, briefly stopped fighting the Windrunner and started firing at each other. Old grudges and new fears ignited into war. Nobody wanted their rivals to get progenitor technology first. The Windrunner crashed into the moon's surface, carving a trench through ancient dust. They were inside a crater that looked like it had been made by something incomprehensibly large. At the crater's center was a structure that did not belong. A pyramid made of the same black material as Omega, covered in those familiar flowing symbols. The entrance, Omega said. Only those with progenitor DNA can open it. They suited up and left the ship. The moon had no atmosphere, so they moved in bulky spacesuits. Day approached the pyramid, and the symbols began to glow. A doorway opened, revealing a passage leading down into darkness. The fleets will land soon, Yuna warned. We have maybe an hour before they reach us. Then we move fast, Day said, and stepped into the vault. The passage was lit by strips of light that activated as they walked. The walls were smooth and covered with images. Day saw the history of the progenitors painted in holographic light. Their rise from a single world, their spread across the galaxy, their creation of new species, and finally, their war against the Devourer and their departure from this dimension. They descended for what felt like hours but was only minutes. Time worked strangely in the vault. Finally, they reached a massive chamber that made Day's breath catch in his throat. The room was vast, stretching away into impossible distances. Gardens grew under artificial sunlight. Fountains of water that should not exist on an airless moon flowed peacefully. Buildings of crystal and metal rose like monuments to a lost age. And in the center of it all was a throne. It was simple, just a chair carved from white stone. But it sat on a raised platform, surrounded by 12 empty pedestals. 11 of them were dark. The 12th glowed with blue light as Omega floated to it and settled into place. Welcome to the Chamber of Kings, Omega said. Its voice echoed through the vast space. This is where the last progenitor king departed. This is where he left his message for those who would come after. Holographic projections filled the air. A man appeared, tall and strong, unmistakably human but somehow more. His eyes held wisdom that came from millennia of life. He began to speak, and Omega translated, "If you are hearing this, then my children have found their way home. I am the last of the progenitor kings, and I leave this message for the inheritor who comes after. Know that we did not abandon you. We went to fight a war that would consume everything if we failed. For 50,000 years, we have held the devourer at bay, but we grow weary." The king's image gestured to the empty pedestals. "I left 12 sentinels to guide you. When all 12 are awakened, they will show you the path to join us in the war beyond. We need you. All the species we created, working together, combining your strengths as we once dreamed." The image changed, showing the war against the devourer. It was horrible and beautiful. Beings of light fought against endless darkness. Entire dimensions collapsed and were reborn. It was a battle beyond normal understanding. "But I leave you a choice," the king continued. "You can claim the throne and lead as we once did. Use the technology we left behind. Wake the sentinels, rally the species and bring them to war. Or you can forge a new path. You are not us. You are something different, shaped by hardship we never knew. Perhaps you can find a solution we could not imagine." The hologram faded. The chamber fell silent. Day stood before the throne, feeling the weight of 50,000 years pressing down on him. Bo spoke quietly. "What do you want to do?" Day thought about everything he had learned. The progenitors had been brilliant, but flawed. They had created species to be complementary, but had not considered that difference could lead to conflict. They had given their children life but not trust. They had left them to grow, but had always planned to one day rule them again. "I am not going to sit on that throne," Day said finally. "What?" Yuna asked. "Day, this is what we came for. Answers. Technology. The ability to stop the wars. No." Day shook his head. "If I claim that throne, I become what everyone fears. A human king with ancient power. The species we are related to will never trust us. They will either worship us or fight us. Either way, we are not equals." He turned to face Omega. "The progenitors made a mistake. They created children but treated them like tools. They engineered species for specific purposes instead of letting them find their own paths. If we do the same thing, we will just repeat their failures." "Then what is your plan?" Omega asked. Day smiled. "I am a mechanic. I fix things. And the galaxy is broken because everyone is fighting over who gets to be in charge. So we are going to fix it by sharing everything." He touched the throne, and the vault responded to his DNA. Holographic controls appeared, showing him the locations of the other 11 sentinels, showing him the technology stored in the vault, showing him weapons and shields and engines that could change civilization overnight. "Omega, send a message to every ship in orbit. Tell them I am opening the vault to everyone. Share the location of the other sentinels. Give them the knowledge freely." "That is not wise," Omega protested. "Some will use it for war." "AP, maybe," Day agreed. "But we cannot force peace. The progenitors tried that, and it did not work. We have to trust that if everyone has the same knowledge, the same technology, then nobody has an advantage. And maybe, just maybe, they will realize fighting is stupid when there is a real enemy out there waiting." He activated the vault's broadcast system. His message went out to every ship, every station, every world in the galaxy. Day spoke simply and honestly. "My name is Han Day. I am a human mechanic. I found something old and woke it up. Now everyone is fighting over it. But here is the truth. We are all children of the progenitors. All of us. Every species carries their genes. Earth is not special. We just got lucky because we were left alone to develop slowly." He showed them the message from the last king. He showed them the war against the devourer. He showed them Why the progenitors had left. They wanted us to join them, but only if we choose to. Not because a king commands it, but because it is the right thing to do. So I am sharing everything. Every piece of technology in this vault. The location of every sentinel. All of it. Free for anyone who wants it. Because we cannot fight each other anymore. There is a real enemy out there. And we need to be ready. The fleets in orbit stopped firing. Slowly, ships powered down weapons. They did not trust each other. But they could not ignore what Day had revealed. Sora Kwan's face appeared on communication screens. She looked tired but relieved. You just changed everything, Day. I hope you know that. I know, Day replied. But someone had to fix this mess. In the months that followed, the galaxy slowly came together. Not perfectly. Not without arguments and setbacks. But the knowledge Day shared made it impossible to go back to the old ways. Humans were not masters. They were teachers, showing other species how to interface with progenitor technology using the awakened genes they all possessed. Day returned to his workshop on Crossroads Haven. The station had been repaired, and life was returning to normal. He still fixed machines. He still preferred the quiet of his tools to the noise of politics. But now people came to him, not for repairs, but for lessons. Omega stayed with him, no longer on a pedestal but on his workbench. You chose a harder path than kingship, the AI observed. A king gives orders. A teacher must convince. Maybe, Day said as he worked on an engine that a young alien had brought him. But this feels right. The progenitors left because they had to. We stay because we choose to. That is the difference. Somewhere in the void between dimensions, the progenitor king felt the awakening of his children and smiled. They were ready. Not as servants or soldiers, but as allies who had chosen their own path. The war against the devourer would continue. But now, for the first time in 50,000 years, reinforcements were coming.